All right.
Okay, so I think we'll get started. My name is Margaret Turner. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen. And in case anyone was wondering, how does that happen? Well, once a year in March, we have an election, and one of the three selectmen is chosen each year. So we always have some continuity on the board. And after we have that election, the three selectmen meet and they decide who's going to be the chair, who's going to be the vice chair, and who gets to be something else. As an example, on our board, Mike Aronson has been chair a few times in the past. And also Rich Rita is our alternate. So for the planning board. So he goes and he sits in on all the planning board meetings, which are held usually about once a month, in addition to our regular selectmen meetings. And the purpose of tonight's information session is to tell you all about what goes into putting a budget together, reviewing the budget with the public, and ultimately, hopefully getting it approved. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let you do your thing, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. I'm gonna, well, I need to have screen sharing, Sharon.
Is that,
Still said disabled?
you should have it on there, Mark.
Nope, not letting me. Maybe we're gonna have them.
You might have to make Mark the host, Sharon.
Make me a co-host.
One participant, all participants can share.
Oh, I got it. I got it
Does
now.
that work? Okay.
Okay.
You had one button push. Yeah, shouldn't have. There you go.
And away we go.
That worked. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Not yet? Well, let's go over here.
There you go, Mark.
Now I'm going to start the slideshow. There you go.
There you go.
We defeated technology. That's good. So thank you for the introduction, Margaret, and I want to welcome everyone to our second session about town government here in our two-part series. So it was nice to see between Tuesday night and folks watching on the video on our YouTube channel that we had between 40 and 50 people so far who have seen the information that we shared on Tuesday regarding each of our town departments. So that's good to see. Hope that everyone gets a similar amount of good information this evening as we talk through several things. And here's a basic agenda of what we're going to be talking about this evening. As Margaret said, we're going to be talking about the budget process. We're going to go into a little bit about what town meeting is and the timeline and how we do town meeting here in Waterville Valley. And then we're going to close out the evening by talking about some major projects and issues facing the town, because those will be the things that we are discussing during the budget process and during the town meeting time. So let's talk about the budget process first. Here in Waterville Valley, we do not have a budget committee. So the budget is a responsibility of the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. There is a statutory requirement for the selectmen to present or have a public hearing on the operating budget, and at least one public hearing on any proposed bond issue over $100,000 before town meeting. So basically, during the month of December, the selectmen and I will be meeting with department heads, and we'll be formulating the actual department budgets and the overall town budget. And hope by before the end of January, we will make final revisions on those drafts, and we will post an overall budget for the budget hearing. Traditionally, here in Waterville Valley, our budget hearings have been on the first Wednesday in February, and that is our plan again this year. So I believe that is February 3rd. The first Wednesday in February, we will hold a public hearing on the budget and proposed bond issues. When we are talking about the budget, you're going to hear me talk a lot about these 4 different terms. The first one is I'll talk about a town operating budget, and that is the expenditures for each of our departments, all of the operations. The town cannot spend money during the year without having an authorization from town meeting to spend that money. So we present a budget and we ask for approval from the voters to appropriate money so that we can use it to run each of the departments here in town. Now, the operating budget does not include any of our bond issues that we are proposing or special warrant articles that are for specific purposes, and it usually does not include anything for capital reserves. You'll also hear me talk about revenues, and when I'm talking about revenues, I'm talking about monies that the town collects for the operation of town that do not include taxes. What we will do is we will calculate how much money it will take to run the town for the year. And we will then estimate how much money we think each of the departments are going to collect during the year. That's these revenues. And we are going to subtract those revenues off of that total amount that town meeting has authorized. And you see that right down here with the word appropriation. So the total appropriation for the town, we subtract off the revenues, and the balance is how much we need to raise in taxes to run the town for the year. And I just want to note as part of this appropriation that our fiscal year for the town is the calendar year. So January 1st to December 31st. You'll also hear us talk a bit about undesignated fund balance. This number right here, that's really the surplus that we have at the end of each year. This comes from revenues that we collect that are in excess of our forecasts, and it's any money that we did not spend from the authorization that was appropriated at town meeting. So the total amount of money that town meeting says we can spend, if we don't spend that, because we've already collected it through the tax rate through the year, it goes into this undesignated fund balance. When we are presenting the budget, you're going to see a summary like this. Now, this is the specific summary that we used last year, and we don't have these numbers for 2021 yet, but this is what you're going to see at our budget hearing and at town meeting. So in 2020, we had an operating budget of $4.2 million. We had bonded articles or bond issues in the amount of $1.15 million. We had some special warrant articles for $375,000. That gave us a total appropriation of this $5,768,000 number here. We then estimated our revenues, including the use of fund balance. That's what FB means. And we estimated the taxes to be raised at $2.99 million for the year. Each year we will compare that to the prior year and let you know what the change is in each one of those categories. And just as a side note, this was the entire budget was approved at town meeting. Now, use of the fund balance, how we calculate that or how we track that for you. You're also going to see this chart during our budget hearings. It'll be updated with a new column here for 2021. This use of fund balance each year actually reduces the amount of taxes that are raised, because this is basically tax money that has already been raised once. So we return it as a revenue into the budget so that we don't have to raise it again. For these years from 2014 to 2020, the fund balance that we have used equates to $1,429,000. And at our current valuation for the entire town, that represents $4.29 on the tax rate that we did not have to add in each one of these years. So basically we use this fund balance money to pay for one-time capital items in each one of these budgets. And I will, please make notes if you have any questions. I will answer them at the end here if you do have any questions. So that's some general information regarding our budget. I don't have specific numbers to share with you folks this evening, but we will be publishing that as soon as the selectmen, department heads, and I have a chance to get together and finish putting together the budget. Let's talk a little bit about town meeting, our process, and the timeline for 2021. There are three main things that we do at town meeting each year. One, we vote on proposed zoning ordinance changes. We vote on the proposed operating budgets and the capital funding for major projects. And as Margaret said, we elect our town officials through a ballot process at town meeting. This year, the zoning ordinance changes are proposed by the planning board. And this year, the planning board is planning or proposing several changes in the zoning ordinance. They are going to hold a public hearing next Wednesday, December 9th at 6 p.m. It'll be a Zoom meeting and the link will be on our town website. At that public hearing, they listen to whatever folks have to say about their proposed changes in the zoning ordinance. The planning board then takes those public comments and they will, at their regular meeting the next day, Thursday, December 10th, at 8 a.m., they're going to discuss the comments that were made, and they're going to start to finalize those proposed changes. They have to finalize those changes and publish them for public notice no later than February 1st. So starting next week through up until at the beginning of February, you're going to be hearing about proposed changes to the zoning ordinance from the planning board. Then the operating budget. There's some key dates that are going to happen in the upcoming months here with our budgets. The budget will be published and available. We actually make copies and we put them out at different places around town, including the post office, and usually leave some at Jugtown, and we have them here at Town Hall, and of course we'll have them on the town website. But we will publish that no later than January 25th. And then we will have a public hearing, that should actually say public hearing, not public notice, on Wednesday, February 3rd. And at that time, the selectmen present what information we have on the budget, and we take comments back, and then the selectmen have a final deliberation about whether or not they want to make any changes to that budget. We finalize it and publish a final budget and the town report, which comes out between 7 and 10 days before town meeting. That'll have all of the budget information and the town warrant so that people can read ahead of time and know what's going to happen at town meeting. Also, the third item is our voting for candidates. Folks can file for the different positions. We usually post on the town website and a couple of places around town which offices are open, and folks can file to be a candidate for those offices. And you do that filing between January 20th and January 29th this year. So you actually come into town hall and you fill out a little piece of paper that says, I want to serve in this position or on this board. And if it's a position where we pay a stipend, you have to give us $1 to sign up. But your name will be on the ballot and will get voted on at the March town meeting. The final key date here, and I didn't even write it down, how silly, is town meeting date, which is going to be, it's always the second Tuesday of March each year, and this year it's March 10th. And we will hold two separate, and let me just go to the next thing here. There you go.
There you go.
I'm sorry, it's on the 9th. Oh, yes, because I'm thinking March. I'm thinking the 3rd. So town meeting is going to be on March 9th. The polling place is going to be determined because we don't know, with COVID restrictions and everything that has been going on, we do not know at this point in time exactly what we're going to be doing for the polling. So the times that the polling places will be open and the locations of the polling place will be determined at some future time. It will definitely be determined by the end of February. And when we have town meeting, we split it into two parts. The first part is the actual polling place, just like a regular election. We have ballots and everything else. That's held usually in the morning and early afternoon. And then after 5 or 6 hours or however long the polls are open, after that, we come together in what's called a deliberative session. And that's where we actually sit in the same room, and each of the warrant articles are covered and they're discussed and they're voted on. This is one of the biggest questions right now with the COVID restrictions, exactly what this deliberative session is going to look like this year. So we will keep you guys informed and provide you with information as much as we can before town meeting. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'm going to go into our major projects. And I'd like to begin with first talking to you about the capital improvements program. So the numbers are pretty small on this screen, But I want you to just get the idea that we have an overall program. It's a very long-term plan about how to address major infrastructure or equipment items that we need to purchase, either to maintain our facilities or to replace aging equipment and that sort of thing. It's broken down, as you see here, by department and by project. And this plan is a 6-year plan. It goes, this particular one is from last March, and it goes from 2020 to 2026. So it's actually a 7-year plan, but I never count this year that's in the box because that's where the actual funding is coming from for that budget. So it's the current year plus 6 years. All right. The plan is developed. It's a responsibility of the planning board. The planning board goes through a process where they have a subcommittee that meets with the department heads and discusses the needs for each of the departments. And they put together, this subcommittee puts together the overall plan, but the planning board as a whole has to review this and approve it. And then they forward it on to the selectmen, and the selectmen generally, although they talk about all of the years out, the selectmen are mostly concerned with this column, the current fiscal year, because that's the piece that gets put into the budget for that year. This plan, even though it's only 7 years long, is actually a subset of a much larger document that the planning board uses each year that's actually looking out 15 or 20 years or more. So it is a comprehensive look at all of these major expenditures that we're looking at to help run the town. Generally, these are non-recurring costs and projects, and there's a limit on the size of the projects that can be in here. Generally, either the useful life of the item, like a vehicle or something like that, is 5 years or more, and the cost is over $10,000. So that's how an item makes it into the CIP. Here's the second page of the CIP. And one of the major purposes of this capital program is to balance out the impact of our major expenditures so that we don't have big fluctuations in the tax rate. And the way that we do that is here at the bottom of the page. We track how much of the tax rate we are spending on our capital purchases and our debt service payments each year. We have set as our goal right here to have no more than $2.75 per thousand of our tax rate being used for these capital costs. All right, and as you can see from the plan here, we are meeting that goal of no more than $2.75 on the tax rate, and we actually have a surplus remaining from what we approved in 2020 each year. This surplus allows us to plan if we have unanticipated needs or the size of a project changes or something. It gives us a little flexibility in financing projects year to year. Now, the other thing that our CIP shows us is the funding sources, where the money comes from to pay for these projects on a year-to-year basis. And we classify it as basically 4 different categories. When we say cash, we mean tax dollars, and that's the first level here. And you can see in 2020, we used approximately $134,000. We didn't really, that's what was proposed. We ended up moving most of that, in fact, all of it down here to fund balance use. So the 134 got taken out of here and got put together with this 211,000, and we actually used $335,100 in fund balance. And that was in an effort, again, to level out the impact of on the tax rate for 2020. We also had bonding, which was proposed, you saw on the other slide, $1,150,000. And I'll talk a little bit about what that was in just a minute. And then we had some grant opportunities, grant funding opportunities from the state of New Hampshire. So we proposed using $65,000 of grant monies in the year. Every year, these numbers will change as projects are modified and as new needs come up. So the 2021 capital program, we will try to stick as close to this as we can, but there will be changes to these numbers as we move forward year to year. Now I have department heads here, so if you have any questions as we start talking about specific projects, I do have my subject matter experts here with me, so we'll try to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So let's move on to some specific projects that we have coming up and issues that we have facing the town. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is upgrades to our water system. And I have a picture here that will show you we approved a $1 million bond issue in March of this year to make some repairs and improvements to our water treatment and distribution system. And this picture shows us basically what we're going to do. We have drinking water wells out along the Mad River. And just to orient you, the library is over here, and River Road and the rest of West Branch Road are up here. Here's the Mad River coming down through, and the bridge over the Mad River on West Branch Road is right here. We currently have a water treatment building located up here, along with a well number 2, located right beside it. We also have another well down here on the little peninsula along the Mad River Trail. Don't know if you guys have ever been out there and seen it, but basically we pump water from our drinking water well located out in the National Forest out here, and well number 2. We pump them out of the ground and we treat them. Part of it gets treated here in a new water treatment facility, and part of it gets treated here in pump house number 2. The water then flows along these blue lines, which are water pipes, and it goes in an underground pipe that's in the Mad River right beside the bridge, and it goes this way up into our water storage tanks or into the rest of town, which is over here. What we have noticed is this line is starting to show. The actual bottom of the Mad River this line is starting to get uncovered. So we are concerned that this line might get compromised at some point in the future. So we have designed a new crossing. Oh, sorry, I clicked my mouse. And then I went the wrong way. Sorry, I'll keep my finger off the mouse. We have designed a new crossing here to bring water from well 3 over to here. And we're going to tie in well 2 to this treatment building. So all of our water will be treated here. And then we will pump it out, and we will have both the current crossing and a new crossing to get the water from this side of the Mad River over here to where we need it. And that'll be done on these red lines. So the connection of the wells to this treatment building and these new crossings are what we raised the $1 million for. That money has already been raised, and we are currently doing the design work and the permitting for these river crossings and the design work of all these lines right now. We hope to begin construction in the late summer, early fall of next year, and it'll take us about a year to complete the work. In addition to this water system improvements that we have going on, remember we raised $1,150,000 last year with bond issues. The other part of that was $150,000 to do a engineering work for the improvement of town roads and pedestrian path and bike path. And that engineering work is going on right now, which includes an assessment and prioritization of repairs that we need to make on our road system. That work we are hoping will be finished in time for us to go back into the CIP and actually put in a road project number. And I think it would be better if I just show you. Here you see we have road repair and maintenance, road repaving and sidewalks. And we have 3 projects here that have no funding with them right now, no cost estimates. So what we are doing with this engineering work is we're determining what these numbers need to be. And once we know what the numbers are, we'll select what year those projects are actually done in. Okay. The next part of that, which is actually related, is our trails and wayfinding. Wayfinding is just a fancy word for signs. So our trails and signs, we integrate into whatever this town road and pedestrianization plan is. We're going to integrate hiking trail, biking trail, and sign improvements all around town. We have a group called the Town Core Working Group that have been charged by the selectmen with making recommendations about these projects. We are starting with the area around Corcoran Pond, right in the middle of town, with trail improvements and these new signs, and we're working our way out. We actually did the first section of trail improvements this past summer on the Village Trail, which runs between the Corcoran Pond Dam and Snowsbrook Road. A part of this that you will probably see in the capital program at some point is some sort of pavilion and bathroom facility for the center of town. This has been a major issue that folks have repeatedly brought up about the need for new bathrooms and the need for some sort of covered area around the beach in some way. And we are working on trying to come up with a concept that works down by the beach and in the center of town to address both of these items. We don't have any specific project for this right now, but we are working on it now. And also as part of this, the wayfinding, we're improving signage on all of the trails, and we want to expand that as we do road repairs and everything to improve our signage on trails so that it's easier for guests here in the valley to be able to get around. All right. So some more major projects here. The wastewater treatment plant. This is probably the single largest project that we have ever done here in town. Our current plant was built in 1974, and we had a meeting yesterday with the permit folks at the EPA, and there are going to be new permit requirements under 2020 EPA regulations that tell us how we have to treat, or to what level we have to treat our sewer water before we discharge it into the Mad River. And for those of you who don't know, we have a tertiary treatment plant, which means it's a very advanced plant, and it actually treats the water in 3 different ways before we discharge it out to the Mad River. That's all controlled. My light keeps going off. That's all controlled through by the EPA. They give us limits on different things in the water, different materials in the water, and we have to meet those regulations, and we test the water all the time, and the EPA looks at those test results and makes sure that we maintain the plant the way that, and run the plant the way that we're supposed to. The problem that we're going to face is that those standards are becoming much more restrictive than they have in the past. We basically have been using the same treatment process that we started with back in 1974 with very few modifications. The new permit regulations are going to be much more stringent, and so we are looking at alternative methods of discharging this effluent, whether or not we want to keep going into the Mad River. We're looking at different options. There are different ways to do that now. And so we're going to be looking at a new plant and some very significant upgrades to the way we handle wastewater here. And that's going to be very expensive. So we will be providing more information as part of the budget process this year. And we'll have some estimates for town meetings information when we get to that point in March. But that is going to be a significant change in our capital program moving forward. The other big thing that we are looking at right now that could probably have the second largest impact and maybe more immediate, because on the treatment plan, I just want to mention one thing. That is going to be a multi-year project. So we are not going to have to raise all of the money or build that plant in a single year. We're going to be spreading that out over 3 years or more probably. So, but education funding is something that we could face as early as 2021 or 2022. Here in New Hampshire, education funding comes primarily from property taxes. Well over 90% of all funding for schools in the state come from property taxes. And there are two parts to the tax rate that we use to fund education. And that is right here on these two lines. It's called local education and state education portions of the tax rate. As you see, right now, we get to use both of these lines, and these numbers, they may be hard for you to read, but it's $505,000 here under local education, and it's $658,000 here under state education. We get to use that entire amount, both of those amounts, to run our school here in Waterville Valley. There has recently been a special legislative commission that was appointed last year by the state House and Senate. And they have been studying for the past year how to handle education funding for all communities in the state. They published a report on Tuesday, and in that report, they made a recommendation to the legislature that that this state education money portion here, this $658,000 that we raised this in 2020, that amount be raised by the towns and sent to Concord. It would then go into a large pot in Concord, and the state would reallocate that money out to each community based on a formula that they developed to address needs in communities that may not have as much property value, or they may have additional needs in their education system that they can't effectively pay for. And so this money would be redistributed. And this is a system that the town that the state has used in the past for a few years. But it basically takes money from some communities in the state and distributes it to other communities in the state. If this recommendation is accepted by the legislature and put into place in the 2021-2022 budget, we could have to send this $658,000 to Concord. We would then have to, if we want to continue to fund our school at its current level, we would have to raise that money again. So in effect, it would increase our property tax rate by this $1.99 per thousand without any changes to the current expenditures that we have. So this could be a significant, have a significant impact on our budget going forward, and we'll have more information about that as both the town and school budgets continue to move forward. Other projects that and I do want to say that there is a website, and we will post this on the town website so that folks can visit this site here. But this is the website that this legislative commission used. There are copies of all of the hearings that they held over the past year. And there's a copy of the actual recommendation and final report from the commission at this website here, carc.unh.edu. So we will, like I said, we will make sure that this is on the town website, and we'll keep getting this information out so people can look for themselves at what this particular topic is all about. Other projects that I'm not going to go into any great detail this evening about include recycling and our vehicle replacement program and that sort of thing. We will talk about any of those type of items or other equipment or special materials, anything that's going to be put into the CIP at our budget hearings. But there are other things that you will see on the CIP besides these major topics. But I just wanted to cover these in a little bit of detail this evening, so you can start to gather some information for yourself as we move forward here. And that is the formal part of my presentation. Like I said, we do have the department heads here. I'm going to end the slideshow so we can see each other. And if anybody has any questions, either the selectmen or myself or the department heads can provide you with some information. Everybody good to go? All right.
Mark.
Well, yes, Margaret.
Yeah, I know this is new information, but because we just found out about it today. But could you address, just as an example of the new EPA requirements, the ammonia treatment that we have been doing and what we're going to be required to do in the future and what the cost around that might be?
Okay, well, yeah, I'll talk through it, Dylan, and if I make a mistake, please yell at me, okay? To keep it in pretty general terms, because Dylan Tucker here from our wastewater treatment plant is going to be working on the details, but generally, one of the materials that we treat for and we remove from the water, from the wastewater before we discharge it, is ammonia. Right, Dylan?
That's correct.
Got that right so far. All right. And the way we treat that is right now in our current permit, we only have to specifically treat for it a couple of months out of the year. And so we do that in the summertime. And we do that 2 months out of the year. It's a very involved process, a lot of chemical reactions, and we're actually, Dylan and the guys are making hydrochloric acid before they treat it and take that out of the water. But it costs about $40,000 to $50,000 over these 2 months for the chemicals as part of that treatment. Under our new permit, the draft that the EPA talked to us about, we are now maybe required to do that instead of a couple of months out of the year. We may be treating it 12 months out of the year. And it could correspondingly increase our costs by 6 times. So, I mean, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars to meet this new requirement just for the chemicals. So that's just one example. And there are other parts to the new permit that we would have to look at, but it could mean significant cost increases for us. Did I get that right, Dylan?
Yep.
All right. So we're working, Dylan is working with our engineers, and they're actually doing the calculations now, and they will have the actual cost estimates when we get to the budget process moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one other thing, Mark, just mention about fund balance.
Yes.
Which from Mark's description, basically you understand that fund balance is basically surplus money that was voted and taxed by the town, but not used in the year that it was voted. So what people need to understand is that the selectmen cannot just go take fund balance and use it without voter approval. There is one time during the year when we are setting the tax rate that we have the ability to use fund balance to make adjustments in the tax rate, to try and keep things even and that type of thing. But for all other uses of that fund balance, which again is taxpayer money, the town meeting is actually where people will vote on specific projects to use the fund balance for.
That's right. And as I said, we've historically, the approach that the selectmen have taken is to use that fund balance for those capital items because they're one-time items. The other danger if in using fund balance is if you use it to offset your operating costs, your year-to-year recurring costs, you actually create a deficit in your budget each year that you have to then either fill with fund balance again, or you have to raise taxes. So the selectmen have decided that we take these one-time projects each year and we evaluate the use of fund balance for those projects because we don't want to use it for operating budget costs. All right. Well, thank you again for the folks who showed up this evening. I really appreciate it. And we will be putting this, a recording of this time up on our town website or on our YouTube channel and a link on our town website. So folks talk about it and let people know that they're going to be able to watch it moving forward. So thank you for your time and thank you to the department heads for being here and the selectmen for hosting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.